You know what? It's really weird. Getting old is really weird. It's a really weird experience to get old. I'm not saying it's a bad experience. I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying it's a weird experience. It's weird to to watch a movie from 1990, and the last time you saw that movie was 1990. And the last time you thought about that movie was 1990. Then, for some reason, on a night much like tonight, because it was tonight, I thought, what was that movie that Christian Slater was in where he plays like a high school kid who's known, not Heathers, another movie where he plays a high school kid, and he has a shortwave radio or something, and he does this show on shortwave radio, and like says, what is it about? What is it? America's falling apart. What's happening to us? And it's, I hate everything, and and here's some cool music, and all the local kids love him, but they don't know who he is because he's using something to disguise his voice, a modulator thing. Um, but he's a big hit among the students at his fellow students who don't know who he is, and he's some kid who's unhappy about having moved to this suburban school from some really cool school in New York with his cool parents, but they decided to sell out and move to Arizona, which I guess was the height of Squaresville in 1990 or maybe. Um, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, what was that movie? And it was I scrolled around a little, and it's called Pump Up the Volume, and I had to write. So then I wrote Pump Up the Volume movie because of course the first thing you get is the song Pump Up the Volume, and when you hear the words Pump Up the Volume, you probably think of the song from around the same era. I think the song came before the movie. In fact, I'm sure of it. Um, and the song is not in the movie because it's not a cool enough song to be in the movie. But who, like, what's the soundtrack? It's like the Replacements, and actually I don't even know if the Replacements are part of the soundtrack, but they could be. It's music like that. Um, yeah, cool music. The same sort of like the like punk or post punk kind of. Not like the Dead Milkmen are not. I'm just thinking of bands that aren't in the soundtrack but could be. Dead Milkmen are another one. Anyway, these are all such specific references to that very specific era. And when I saw this movie in 1990, which is the last time I thought about it, it didn't seem dated at all. I mean, I didn't really. I mean, I saw it at age 19, and didn't. It didn't do that much for me. I thought it was. I thought what I still think about it. My assessment of the movie as a 19-year-old is almost exactly, well, not exactly the same, but it's. I mean, I think the movie is about as good as I thought it was when I saw it at age 19, which is to say, not very. Um, but it's so strange to watch this movie when it's contemporaneous and when you are the target audience, supposedly. I was a little bit older. Of course, I had graduated high school, but I was still basically the target audience who the movie was supposed to appeal to. And teenage rebellion, and adults don't understand, and all that kind of stuff. That like it's the Breakfast Club revisited, but uh, but it's the things that are dated about it are especially things. I mean, like, and when I say dated, I don't mean that makes it bad. I don't mean well, that didn't age well. I mean, I really hate when people talk about things quote not aging well unquote, because what they really mean is, oh, this has humor in it that we're not supposed to think is funny anymore. um, you know, and they're so sure that we're right now and that they were wrong then. What makes you so sure about that? What makes you so sure? Um, so yeah, so what? So the one of the things that this guy does uh, when he's doing his ham radio uh, broadcast is he pretends to masturbate, and he talks about being a chronic masturbator, and like he does it with sound effects. He's not actually doing it, but he's like slapping his wrists together, or slapping his wrist with his hand and rubbing it, and doing stuff that simulates the sound to make it seem like he's actually doing it, and and of course vocalizing. And the kids who are listening are all like, "Ha ha, that's great," and the like girls think it's funny, and guys think it's cool, and whereas today it'd be like, man, what a loser, what an incel, what a creepy guy. This is like it's just so creepy to masturbate on on his radio show and think that that's cool and funny. What th- this is a uh, this is a different time where that sort of thing is. I mean, this is a far more censorious time. I'll just say it like that. And I would say for all the problems that my generation had, we were not censorious the way that things are censorious today. In 1990, you could be cool. Like cool music had edgy humor, or uh, you know, what would be called misogynistic jokes or whatever, and things like that. And nobody batted an eye. Nobody. The people who were offended by it were conservatives back then. The people who got offended by racy or raunchy or off color stuff were conservatives, and now it's liberals who are the scolds. Um, it's there's been so much crazy. There have been so many crazy uh, shoe is on the other foot events. There's been so much. It kind of boggles the mind. Um, and this movie brings a lot of that to mind for me, because although like the movie is annoying because it's corny and because it's like contrived, like super duper contrived, in a way that a lot of 80s movies are, where I don't know, there's just they really stack the deck. Like they make the kids all uh like they have all these very unrealistic scenes. But this goes for any like teen movies from the 80s, like First of all, a lot of the people playing teenagers are clearly not teenagers, in a lot of these movies. But also just like scenes that are supposed to be like, n- like Kevin Bacon angrily dancing in a warehouse and drinking and smoking, and then go- going, jumping around and doing gymnastics in this abandoned this barn or something. Well, well, some very generic song, I think Kenny Loggins song but not one that anybody knows anymore, not one that is recognizable, or not one that anybody ever knew. Well, that plays over the soundtrack. There's scenes like that are just so obviously, come on. And they're like, they stack the deck, and they uh like there's so much exposition laden uh dialogue, like his parents say to each other, his mother says to his father, "You used to be a rebel against the system, now you are the system." um and by the way, this is another thing, like, why is it always like in high school movies, when they're showing something happening in class, like a class discussion is going on, and the teacher's trying to make a point, uh, and then suddenly the bell rings? It's like the teacher isn't cognizant of that when the bell's about to ring. Uh, it's like, you know, most of the time, and I'll say this as somebody who unfortunately worked as a teacher for a couple of years in public schools. You're hyper aware of when class begins and when it's coming to a close, and by the time the period is ending, you're probably not about to make a big point, and then the bell rings, and then you can't make your point, and then you have to shout things to the kids as they're leaving. That's just like, there's a moment exactly like that where this teacher asks Christian Slater's character of something, and like, talk about your feelings, something really stupid like that. And so he's the thing is, he's really shy and withdrawn in school. He's this, crazy alter ego, extroverted and outrageous alter ego when he's this um, when he's on his ham radio, but which all the kids listen to. Like, realistically, nobody would notice, or the ones who'd notice would just think it was weird. Uh, and but anyway, um, so yeah, so she asks him uh, to talk about his feelings about something or other, about something he wrote, which she read to the class. And he was uncomfortable with her reading to the class because he's terribly shy and withdrawn, and is unhappy about moving to this boring white bread suburban school away from his cool New York school, and all this, sort of heavy handed stuff. Anyway, um, she asks him, talking about your feelings, tell me how you felt. And then the bell rings, and I said, haha, Saved by the Bell. I said that to myself. And then the teacher said, Saved by the Bell. Literally said that. Which I think that terrible show, like, people who watch that show for nostalgia purposes, that show sucks. Saved by the Bell. I think that was on around that same time. Anyway, uh, yeah. Did Screech die or something? Did the character the guy who played the character Screech, or was there some scandal involving the character who played the guy who played Screech? Anyway, That show was just embarrassingly bad. Everybody that I knew hated that show, and rightly so. In the in that in the late '80s and the early '90s, and then there's some nostalgia for it, but it wasn't like I can tell you that that show was terrible, and not in a charming way. But anyway, there is a charm about this movie, I think, in spite of the fact that I'm making fun of it here. There's something charming to uh, the the way that I guess maybe it's just like even though the movie's not very good, the message about being pro is like pro freedom of speech, and it's down on you know uh, very again very heavy handedly, but it's down on um, those who just see education as a way of churning out like the school uh, is supposed to be the best school in the county because it has the highest SAT scores, but that's just because the principal, we find out, who is weeding out the students who she thinks are prone to not doing well on the SAT, like starting to keep a dossier on them, and then getting enough dirt on them to kick, and then kicking them out under false pretenses. I don't know whether that could actually happen in real life, but the idea is that uh, to lampoon this notion of education of as just a factory where you you do well on standardized tests, and you you conform, and you trust the system, as opposed to speaking out and being outrageous and not being afraid to 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 say things that are going to ruffle feathers, and all that kind of stuff, even though it's kind of it's hackneyed and uh and all that. I wholeheartedly agree, but even with all that, it's still a, something that you just don't hear today. Like you can't, like speaking out against oppression today. you know uh it's not something that liberals will tolerate. It's not something that the it's the fall of liberalism. I mean, in a way, this is what I guess what makes me sad. And it's funny that I would say this as somebody who's definitely not liberal, but there was definitely a difference, as I've said before, between what liberalism was in the '80s and what it is now. What it meant to be on the left in the '80s versus what it means in the early '90s, like this movie, and what it means now. And now it means, shut up, do what you're told, put on your mask, take your shot, uh, you know, don't uh, don't uh, don't question authority figures, uh, buy into the agenda uh, that's being foisted upon you. Don't do anything that will be controversial, like that will make people think that you're, because they'll call you racist and sexist and homophobic now, and transphobic and whatever. They just didn't do that back then. It was different. It was a different time, and I guess in some ways we didn't know how good we had it. At age 19, watching this movie, getting annoyed by it, by the things that are annoying about it. Um, its heavy-handedness, the cliched quality of it, just the contrivances, all of the stuff, the stacking of the deck, uh, making all the authority figures look bad and making all the kids look good. Um, you know, I was annoyed by those things back then. But what I didn't know is that there'd be a day when they'd be saying, if you if you were if you had if you were this kid, the Christian Slater character's kid, and you did this show on your ham radio or on the internet today, let's update it, and people became aware that you were doing things like pretending to masturbate, or uh, just the you'd be called problematic, you'd be called creepy. It's such a censorious time now. It really is, and it was far less so back then. And I think that's what this movie um, made me recall. It's peculiar that this sort of just got this movie just pretty much nobody. I don't ever hear anybody talking about Pump Up the Volume. I've never heard this movie discussed, and as I said, I don't think I even thought about it until tonight. For some reason, I thought about it again, and I thought that might be interesting to watch again, and it was.